Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
You know, he sent me like the forecast surf, and I'm like, all right, you know, the plan gets modified this week. Let's take this out. Let's keep you fresh here, focus on the mobility here, that kind of stuff. So making the decisions of the person who does that so that eventually, you know, the decision-making process and your body kind of catch up to each other, and then they're kind of aligned. Being guided by like a decision process that's going to create the outcome that you want, and how committed are you to the outcome. You're a surfer, you're like always kind of addicted to it on some level. Why don't you just take a mag light and pump it into your eyes for a half hour before you try to close your eyes and sleep for 8 hours, you know? Like, what? Like the habits that you form, and making the good habits easy for yourself and making the bad habits hard for yourself, you know? I'll show them some thoracic mobility stuff and they'll be like, oh my God, like that, what was that? Like, I've never done stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I can see, I've never done stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, how's you working on your posture? Like, oh yeah, I'm doing it all day. I'm like, you're not doing it in my office. I just told you about it yesterday. This is Dave Santamaria, and you're listening to Airey Brothers Radio.
Dave, where can everyone find your info, find Surf Whale, contact you?
So pretty much either my Instagram, which my handle is @DavidJames80, or my Facebook. So pretty much just through social media for now. My Facebook is just Dave Santamaria.
Sweet. We will link all that in the show notes. Crazy thinking about it, Dave, when I was listening to you on the Motives Life podcast and just thinking about it, I'm pretty sure you were going back to school when we were rolling at that time. So to see it kind of come full circle, it's pretty awesome to see your journey and see you know, have a bunch of practices and have the Surf Well going on. It's pretty epic, dude. It's
pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, that was like 2005, man, because I started PT school back then, and yeah, it's been an interesting kind of like, you know, trip from having practices and, you know, kind of changing my path and redirecting myself along the way, and kind of ended up where I'm at now to like bring this like passion of always thinking about surfing, you know, because when you're a surfer, you're like always kind of addicted to it on some level. And like, I didn't necessarily, when I started that PT journey, think there was a path to like connect the two like this directly, you know? So it's kind of eye-opening and kind of cool that, you know, I have the opportunity to work with surfers and like hopefully make that my life, you know? So
along the journey as a PT, was there a specific light bulb moment when you realized that you could connect it to your, you know, your passion with surfing?
Yeah, I mean, in like 2015, when I opened a bunch of practices, I had 2 business partners. This one guy, Frank, and this one guy, Cedric, and they started a company that like niches down somebody's practice. You know, they basically train clinicians to like identify a niche for themselves and to kind of target it. And they had done it with fighters, like with UFC fighters, like kind of maybe in the last like 2 years, the kind of light bulb went off, and I was like, you know, I could probably tie these things together, you know? And then you kind of just got to like man up at one point and be like, all right, I'm going to kind of just transition over to this other, like start a new business that's like online digital platform where the territory is kind of mapped, but it's kind of unmapped because in talking to those guys, they're like, look, we know what works for fighters, and we have other clients that have like runners and people recovering from ACLs, but they're like, we don't have anybody that does surfing. So like, it'll work at some point. You just have to be able to stick it out and kind of like be in that gray unknown area for a little while and keep trying things. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm still like getting the messaging down and seeing what like resonates with surfers, and the things that kind of like pique their interest and like they want to be dialed in on and improve on, and will kind of like inspire them to work with me, so that's kind of a roundabout answer, but it was like kind of when I saw them doing their thing, I was like, oh, I could eventually do this. And then I just had to kind of take that leap of faith, so.
And so was that along the way, as you're taking that leap of faith, are you working with surfers along the way, or are you experimenting with yourself with how you want to kind of build this into a program? Maybe a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. So I'm kind of like enrolled in this program with these guys, and they're kind of like business coaches, right? And they kind of help you build out some of the infrastructure and give you some of the skill set for like marketing, right? Because like making you put yourself out there on social media, which is not something that I had done previously, really. So like over the last like 3 years, my posts are like my anniversary and my wife's birthday. It's like 2 posts a year, and those are like the important ones. So like that's all that's on their social media. So like you kind of build out the infrastructure before you kind of launch a little bit. So you kind of build out the product and kind of how you want it to go. And leading up to that, I'm kind of like trying to do stuff with myself and like experimenting with like the mobility program and things that I think are going to benefit surfers. And part of the program is like kind of inspired by myself because like I had a baby in November. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. He's
First
super
one?
cool. First one. Yep.
Congrats.
Mellow first baby. He's a good
You
kid.
said boy?
Boy, his name's Bowie.
Nice.
So, so like I kind of, stopped working out, just like, getting through the grind of a newborn, and, you kind of like, oh, I'm tired. I'm not going to exercise. And then finally there was waves one day, like 2 months after he was born. And it was good. It was really good. And I was out for like a half hour, and I was like, I got to get out of the water. Like, I think I'm going to throw up. And I'm sitting on the beach, and my buddy's like, did you hurt your back? I'm like, no, I just feel terrible. Like, I'm a little dizzy and I got to go home. I'm like, I don't even know if I can drive home, which was only like 2 miles. So I get home and I just like park it on the couch for like 3 hours. My wife's like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I gotta fix this. This is not how it's going to go. I'm not going out like this. So like another light bulb was like, there's got to be guys that feel the same exact way. They're like, they want to be in shape. They kind of need a little guidance. They kind of need a little help, maybe a little accountability. And so I kind of just like started getting my exercise plan together. And, sometimes I go to a CrossFit gym sometimes because I like the community there, and I don't have barbells in my house. So I get to use barbells when I go there, which, is good for, strength and power and stuff like that. So a little cardio on my own and conditioning on my own, all the mobility on my own. So kind of just like, playing and tweaking, and then started working with some surfers. And one of the guys that you guys know, Jeff Jacobs, he's a guy from Bro.
Yep.
So he's like one of my first clients, and he had an ACL injury about a year ago, and he's like, wasn't feeling great about his knee. So we started working together, and he's a great like beta tester, because he's like up for anything, and he's like that similar like wrestler mindset, which is easy for me to relate to, so he's like good for me to kind of experiment with, and he gives me good feedback. And then there's been other clients that have come along, and we kind of see what works for them, and everybody's got like a little different need or different resource or different equipment. So like you got to play around with the programming and just kind of finding what works for guys and getting feedback from them. And it's just like constant refinement, you know, like you always want to make it a little bit better and make it a little bit more customized for your clients, so they're having a better experience and feeling better and surfing more, you know.
I want to pick your brain on the program a little bit, but I want to go back to something you said in the beginning of not knowing that the PT and the surfing could go hand in hand and become one. And I think one thing as I get older, that's what you find with everything you like or whatever. There's always ways to kind of circle it and connect it together. Did you realize when you went to PT school and when you started a practice, the business was going to go hand in hand as well? And then you said the online platform and learning all that. Did you kind of have a mindset for that? Because I know you had a business background before you went to PT school, or is that something, oh, I have to learn this too because it's hand in hand?
Totally had to learn that stuff. Like I had a business background, but it was like marketing, and it was kind of very general. And you know, I started as just like a staff PT, and then so I started to practice with my brother like 6 months out of PT school. I really had no idea what I was doing. Like clinically, I wasn't strong enough to run a practice, and you know, my business mind was nowhere near where it needed to be to run a practice. And then I got a little more exposure, as a clinic director. And then another time, like I had to take another leap of faith where, you know, I had to take out a loan. I had to quit a job. I had to go with no income for a few months and, you know, opened this practice. And I'm just like, I kind of had to I had to learn this stuff, you know, like you start looking at stupid things like they're so easy for finance guys, like P&Ls, and, you know, you start talking about EBITDA and stuff like that, and how like your margins and things like that, which is, you don't learn that in PT school. And like, you really have to have it dialed in if you're going to run a business. And there's a lot of people in healthcare that have a lot of good intention, and they're great clinicians, and they help a lot of people, but like they're not business savvy, and like they have a great practice, but then like they kind of struggle a little bit. And by no means am I some like, you know, business whiz. Like I still struggle with it, and you know, but I've gotten a lot more exposure to it. Just I had to, I was forced to, you know, to kind of understand it and make it work for myself, and you know, my partners, and eventually my family, you know.
Going back to the programming and
Yeah.
all that, are you kind of getting a movement screen, kind of seeing where someone's at? Is there a general template for everyone, and then you kind of tweak it from there? How's that look?
So yeah, there's the process is generally like, you know, like I kind of start a conversation with somebody, or they start a conversation with me, you know, and we usually get on a call for about 30 minutes. It's like a sales call, but I got to screen them for two things, right? Like one, I want to make sure that they're a good candidate for my programming. Like I'm going to be able to help them. And two, like they're going to be committed, because it's not a small order, like what we're trying to do and what I'm asking for. Like we're talking like life change kind of thing, you know? And then once they're kind of committed and they want to sign up, then we do like, I'll set up like a 45-minute, an hour-long Zoom call where we kind of run through just a movement screen and discuss any like musculoskeletal issues. And if they have anything, you know, we'll kind of dig into that kind of stuff a little bit more. And that'll kind of guide me to the programming and what they're going to kind of need to work on, you know. There's some like foundational stuff that I wouldn't say it's like templated, but you know, for surfing, like a lot of sports, like, you know, you got to build up that like the power center of your body, you know, your quads, your glutes, good strong core, a little more focus on shoulders and lats and back for paddling and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's, you know, it's got like some foundational stuff that I want to make sure everybody has. And I kind of bring people up through progressions of movement. And there's only like, I'm not going to start doing heavy back squats with somebody if like they're not feeling good and getting through like, just body weight squats, like tempo body weight squats with like a band around their knees. I want to make sure like that they feel good on that stuff. If they're doing the beginner stuff, like body weight or just like a light, like goblet squat, I'm not going to just start loading them up on other, we're not going to start doing like front squats or back squats or things like that. We got to make sure their movement is solid and they feel good as they're working through the program so that we can advance them. So the movement screen kind of tells me like, all right, this is like a little weak here. That lunge looks like a little dodgy, their knees kind of caving in, kind of stuff like that to kind of guide me through the process.
And mentioning the lifestyle change, are you touching on nutrition as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a nutritionist, but like I can give you some common sense things, right? Like I had a client and I made him track his nutrition through an app and share it with me so we could just like take a look at it. I was like, don't do anything different. Just put in the food you're consuming. And like every night it was like two, like, I don't know, some like boozy lemonade thing. And they're like 300 calories a pop. I'm like, dude, it's like, you're just like consuming 600 calories of just sugar right before you go to bed. And like,
I don't know why I don't sleep well.
I mean, and then we touch on nutrition, we touch on sleep, we touch on hydration. I mean, I'm sure you guys know, like if you're not sleeping well, you can't be expecting to do anything to your total potential, right? So I like to talk about that, and they're like, yeah, I'm in bed on YouTube and for like 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah, it's like, why don't you just take a mag light and pump it into your eye for a half hour before you try to close your eyes and sleep for 8 hours, like what? I mean, it's like, sometimes it's just like, I think people, you got to connect the dots for them a little bit. I mean, including myself, like I would do that also, like before I started this coaching, me getting coached in the business group and like training these athletes, like I would do the same thing. I'd be like, yeah, it's kind of relaxing. I guess it's not that bad for you. And then you're like, I think your iPhone flashes like 240 frames per second, or you know what I mean? And it's just like getting the strobe light blasted in your face, like 2 inches from your nose before you go to bed. So it's like digital detox stuff we talk about. And it's just like, I think it's basic stuff. It's not necessarily easy stuff, for people to do, which I think is a lot of things, it's like some of the most basic, simple stuff can be super life-changing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy,
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing the other morning, where, oftentimes talking to clients and stuff about nutrition, and, it's either, oh, this is so easy, or, oh, this is so hard. And they're all very simple things, whether it's detoxing from the technology at night, or drinking some electrolytes in your water in the morning, or don't drink alcohol before you go to bed, and probably shouldn't drink alcohol at all. We could go down that rabbit hole with things, but they're all simple things, and they're all simple things to do if you can exert some sort of discipline as an adult. It's one of those things where, Jimmy and I always talk about it, where we say you have to be your own parent. You have to parent yourself, because you get to a certain age and no one's going to like tell you to go to bed. No one's going to slap the drink out of your hand. No one's going to, say, don't do that. You have to be responsible and disciplined enough to say, okay, it's a half hour before bed or an hour before bed. I need to turn off the phone. I need to drink some water before I drink my coffee in the morning. All these little things. And again, it could come back to wrestling and that mindset and stuff. Or just be disciplined. Do it anyway.
I mean, you could have ice cream for breakfast if you wanted to. you're an adult, right? Like you can do whatever you want. And I think it comes to like discipline and like the habits that you form, and making the good habits easy for yourself and making the bad habits hard for yourself, and being guided by like a decision process that's going to create the outcome that you want, and how committed are you to the outcome. So like if you want to be like unhealthy, like if you are content, or your goal is to be like unhealthy person who watches TV all the time and like doesn't sleep that well, then just like eat chips and sit on the couch, and that you will achieve your goal, right? And the decisions are easy. But if you want to be somebody who can surf 6 hours a day whenever the surf's good, and you want to sleep well and like feel healthy all the time, then you got to make the decisions to be that person. And if you know what I mean, so the discipline, you have to have the discipline to do it, but then like you got to find that motivation of like, all right, I want to, like I want to surf when I'm 75. I want to surf when I'm 80 years old. So like, yeah, I got to do, like, I don't love salad all the time, but like I eat it more, I would like to have a cheesesteak most of the time, but like, that's not going to get me to my goal. That's not going to create the outcome that I want. So like, I try to talk to my clients a little bit about that, like that decision process of, and even if you're not where you want to be yet, you got to make the decisions of that person, now. It's just like such an easy wrestling analogy is like, if you want to be a state champ, you can't train like a state champ when you become one. You have to train like one, from day one, and then eventually it happens. Right. So like, if you want to be super fit, anything, and in great shape and move well, like, and if you don't do that, you got to start making the decisions of the person who does that, so that eventually, the decision-making process and your body kind of catch up to each other, and then they're kind of aligned, so putting the phone down, probably eating more vegetables and fruit is probably just an easy baseline decision to make to kind of get the outcomes. And like, it's not necessarily for surfing, it's just for like life.
Yeah.
And then there's like all these other like deep benefits that you can look at of, reducing your risk for cancer and, neurologic degeneration and things like that. But that's longer term. But I mean, anytime you can reduce the risk for that stuff, that's a good thing too, So, but yeah, I mean, discipline, habit forming, decision-making process, that stuff all kind of kicks in, and I can probably be better about it with my clients, and it's just kind of tweaking the process, like sometimes I feel like I'm lecturing them, and sometimes I feel like, who am I to lecture anybody about it, but I guess if they're not hearing it from anybody, I guess they're better to hear it and get tired of hearing it from me than not hear it at all. Right.
No doubt. I also feel like what you said there, like, who am I to say this? I also feel like for me, that also incentivizes me to do certain things a certain way. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm going to be, this guy that people are giving me money to coach them to run ultra marathons or to get fitter, I've kind of live according to the code, even though I don't always, I slip up. I do certain things sometimes and have different vices that I've dealt with throughout different times in my life. But I remind myself of that more and more as I've gotten older and older. Like, you can't complain about a client that's not doing this, when they're not doing their cool down or they're not doing their foundation training, and they're complaining about something that hurts when you're complaining about your back hurting and you're not doing your foundation training or whatever it may be. So it incentivizes me more and more to kind of to live the code and live the path and do things the right way. If I'm going to look for people to compensate me for my advice or my coaching.
Yeah. I feel like the accountability for being a coach is like two ways, right? Like you know, I keep them accountable because I'm watching what they're doing and they're telling me what they're doing. But like indirectly, they keep me accountable because I feel obligated to exactly what you said, like kind of lead by example, you know? Like there'd be plenty of nights where I'd like to just like lay on the couch for an hour and a half and do nothing. But I'm like, oh, I program all this mobility for all these clients and I'm just like not going to get my ass off the couch and like get on some foam roller and, you know, just move around a little bit and, you know, like get myself to feel a little bit better. And even this, some of this, not stupid stuff, but some of the stuff that I preach is like, you know, you don't necessarily have to do it for an hour. You don't have to do it for 2 hours. Like it's a cumulative thing, like, you know, 15 minutes, just like do a little bit of work, like keep ingraining that habit into your body and into your mind, you know, just like, even when you don't want to do it, just like 10 or 15 minutes. It's not always that you're creating some change in your body, but it's the fact that you're continuing to do it and like keep putting in the work is almost as important as like creating the change in your body. You know, it's like sticking to it, keeping yourself accountable and continuing to do it is just like, there's value in that too. So
Momentum is everything. And
totally.
I've noticed sometimes with my yoga or my stretching that there are days where the whole time I'm doing it, I'm like, am I doing this right now? Oh, this hurts so bad. I can't believe I'm doing this right now. I just want to stop. And then you get done and you're like, oh, well, I just got 15, 20 minutes of that done. I don't have to worry about that. And I think it comes back to you saying before, you like having the wrestlers to work with, because we've been setting goals our whole life, or athletes in general, right? We've been setting goals since a young age. And it's one of those things maybe throughout life, whether it is whatever it be, you go on different paths and you stray away. But when it comes time to setting a goal and kind of focusing yourself, it's easy to get there because you grew up doing it. Now, do you have a lot of ex-athletes that gravitate towards you because of your mindset and way you do things, or do you have people who we always talk about, like training age versus your actual age, where you have people who maybe never did anything and you kind of have to teach them how to set goals and maybe like have it one at a time, opposed to like, here's all this stuff I want you to do?
You know what? I haven't, I've had most of my clients, I think all of my clients have some sort of like exercise background, you know, so I haven't come across like the person who like has only surfed and like never exercises. You know, I don't even know if my message would like resonate with that person, because if they've never exercised, like they're like not going to recognize the benefit of that. I think, you know what I mean? It's like, if it's not really on your mind, you're not going to see it, you know? So I haven't come across, honestly, most of my clients have like a pretty solid exercise background, you know, like they've done quite a bit of stuff. They have, you know, like good resources as far as like either like home gyms or gym memberships where they, you know, have unlimited equipment or all the equipment you could ever need. So, no, I haven't had anybody yet. I mean, I'm not opposed to working with anybody like that. You know, I think that's a great, you know, introducing some exercise and some strength training, conditioning to somebody's life could be awesome, you know, but I haven't come across that person yet.
And going back to the programming and the mobility, are you seeing similar movement patterns or lack of movement patterns in surfers, you know, across the board, or is it different for each person? Or because they're, you know, you're doing the same paddle or getting up on the board, you're going to create these certain impingements?
Now I've seen a variety, you know. I haven't seen like, okay, all these surfers, you know, have this injury, you know. So I've seen it. I've probably seen more like just this is how human beings present as opposed to surfers specifically. So I haven't. Plus, like some of the, sometimes I feel like, you know, like ultra marathon, like you can just like slap on your shoes and go. And not to grossly oversimplify the whole deal. You know, like running is, there's a street anywhere, there's a track anywhere, there's a park anywhere. You can just go run, right? And surfing is like, you gotta so many conditions got to come into play. Like you're going to have a hard time like surfing 4 hours a day and almost anywhere. You know what I mean? 7 days. One, you got work, you know, you can't just like, all right, I'm just going to surf at 5 a.m. till 8. Well, it's like high tide and it's flat. You can't surf. You know what I mean? So I feel like most of these people are like, you know, normal jobs and surf like as much as they can when they can, but they don't surf enough to like keep ingraining this movement pattern into their system. I think it's more of like just the human being movement pattern of like, you know, you guys probably see it, some like glute weakness and some core instabilities, and, you know, this gets tight from sitting and postural stuff, things like that.
Added to that, when you're just walking around in your normal life, because I know we do it, and obviously we're not PTs, do you just see broken people everywhere?
Everywhere. Sometimes I'll like see somebody with a cane and I'll be like the cane is just not set up the right way. And like, I want to go over there and be like, look, I'm a physical therapist. I just want to like help you. Let me just adjust the height on this cane and like go over this with you. But I just keep my mouth shut. Nobody wants to listen to me in the middle of the street, you know, but
I was listening to Mark Bell's podcast, and they were talking about walking and like trying to correct someone's walking and going up to someone in public and be like, hey, you should point your toes forward. And the person be like, fuck you, bro. I walk fine.
Yeah. Especially in New Jersey, you know, you're not just going to walk up to somebody and start trying to help them. They like might get punched, or like people are so defensive in Jersey. So it's not going to work. But I mean, I'm not excluding myself from that. You know, I got things that are going on, and I got aches and pains, and I got to work on stuff. And, but like the mobility thing is, I really never worked on it until like this year, you know? So I wish I had been working on it for like the last
2 decades.
Yeah, I think you can like squeak by through your 20s without really you're just going pedal to the floor and going nuts, you know, with whatever you want. But once you're like 30, I mean, probably till like 35, I was like pretty invincible still. And then a little breakdown here and there. But still, I would just ignore it. You know, I was like, oh, that'll go away. I'll just like lay off of the exercise that irritates it. And then I'll do it again in 2 weeks.
We'll work around it.
Yeah. And now that your body's like, nah, you should have been working on this for 10 years.
Can't work around everything.
Yeah.
With your clients, are you seeing surfing specific like overuse injuries that people are dealing with? Or are they coming to you with other injuries from other things that are impacting their surfing?
Other things that are injuries that are impacting their surfing. So trying to think. Yeah, it hasn't been like, oh, I was surfing and this happened. One guy has like some neck issues from surfing, you know, and one guy has some low back issues from surfing. So, but like, some people are just like, I just started surfing like a year ago, and I want to move better and be able to tolerate like paddling and surfing longer. So, you know, throw your program at me and let's get it going. So not too much. And I'm sure as I get more exposure and I get more clients, and because it's really only been like 3 months, I've been putting it out there, 3.5 months. I'll come across some of that and get maybe some higher level surfers, you know, that they might have some of that stuff. But just like those 2 clients for now that have that neck and that back thing, 2 separate clients, you know.
Is that like thoracic spine stuff from just popping up?
The back thing is like, he had it for a while, but it's kind of okay. But when he surfs, he feels it. So it's like low back. And then the other guy is, he's like actually super mobile. And I don't know if he has like the stability for it. So it's not something I normally do, but we've done some like cervical strengthening for him, and it seems to be helping him out. But I get like, with my PT background, like I'm like very conservative on like cervical strengthening stuff, you know. I just want to make sure it's super safe and we're not creating some other issue along the way. But he's been feeling pretty good, so it's been working pretty well. Yeah.
And overall, is this surf community fairly in tune with, like, are there more people that are like Kelly Slater and Laird Hamilton and Shane Dorian? Are they like that type, or is it more like, grimy cigarette smokers that are just like, let's just go paddle out and surf?
I think it's swung a lot more towards like the Kelly, Laird, Shane, like the world champ is the guy is Italo, and a Brazilian dude, and he's got like barbell stuff all over his Instagram. He's doing like rows and rope stuff, and he's got a lot of strength training going on his Instagram. So I think it's making a shift from like the grimy cigarette smoking, like seedy, shady, like environment or people of society to like people that want to be like healthy and embody that like sunshine kind of vibe and energy, so people are receptive to it. And I guess because like I never knew, or there was all these like surf strength coaches out there, or surf specific training programs out there, until like you throw a couple of searches into your like Google machine or your Instagram, and then like every other like thing on your feed is like somebody else doing some surf specific training, and I'm like, oh, there's so many people out there, but probably not really that many.
Right. You ever do any underwater dumbbell stuff?
I have not gotten into the underwater dumbbell stuff yet.
Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, the dumbbells and like
the rocks.
Yeah. Laird Hamilton has some like crazy like water training program, like you can go spend a week with him for like 10 grand or something like that. So
is he still doing the XPT stuff, or did they kind of morph that into something else?
I think it's something like that. It's like a whole system. He's like 5 hours doing saunas and cold dips and like hold your breath for 7 minutes, stuff like that. Right. Crazy Laird Hamilton stuff, Yeah,
no doubt. He's a legend. I mean, that guy's been. I always think back to North Shore when we first started watching that, like in the late '80s, and he's still doing his thing at 55 or whatever he is, and
totally
yoked and in the sauna on an Airdyne with oven mitts on so he doesn't burn his hands and shit.
I spent enough time in the sauna with an exercise bike when I was a teenager, so
never do that again.
I think I'm good on that. Take the credit card move, like scraping your back off and scraping your body off to get the sweat off there with the room key or the credit card. Like, oh, I don't need any of that stuff in my life anymore.
You need an ayahuasca trip to recover from that trauma.
Yeah.
So what's like the breakdown? If someone new comes to you, they have a decent athletic background or exercise background. Is there different packages in terms of like a mobility package versus like an all-inclusive, or is it all-inclusive?
It's all-inclusive. I want it just like there's no like you'll only get more or less of something if it's appropriate, so like I had a guy, he was a little bit older, like 50s. He's like, dude, I haven't surfed in a year. I got to go to Cabo. I want to surf, and I haven't been working out. And his like schedule is tight, and like I like to do like 3 days of strength and 2 days of conditioning and mobility every day. But we backed his strength down, and like 3 days was just like a little too much for him. But it's the package is all inclusive, so it's basically time frame. Like, you want to do 3 months, you want to do 6 months. That's pretty much the only difference. And then you get what you need, kind of, in a way, So I had somebody else who was coming off some COVID, and she hadn't been working out in a while, and she's just started up, and I kind of wanted to go a little slower with her. So I was going to start her with like 2 days of strength and, just like ease her in, 2 days of conditioning, kind of light. And I shared the plan with her, and she was like, can we do 3 days of strength? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a collaboration in a way. So,
Yeah.
but like that would kind of be the only variety in there, you know? So as far as like volume and loading people and what they can tolerate.
And where so you said you have, you know, your strength days, your conditioning days. Are we talking with the strength? Are we talking like pure strength, like a 5x5, or like a starting strength, or like a Windler program, or is it more of like a CrossFit based program, and then the conditioning is more of like running, riding, rowing?
Yeah, I'll keep it's a kind of a hybrid of both things. You know, it depends what people are kind of enjoying also. You know, they're like, hey, I like the workouts like that. All right, okay, we can do a little bit more of that. You know, some days and earlier on in the program, I like to kind of just like do a little more foundational strength stuff, you know, and just kind of get their base to a certain level, and then start complicating things a little bit and adding, you know, like stressing them a little bit, and then working on some strength stuff. So they're a little fatigued going into some things. So, and then I usually just, you know, like the conditioning days, I'll keep just kind of separate. You know, I might do like a little Metcon on something like that, but you know, like you got to look at the programming in some days and just be like, all right, I like this workout that I'm creating, but I'm like, what am I accomplishing with this client, this workout sometimes? You know what I mean? So then I got to go like tweak it. Like, yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard, but like, what are they going to get out of it? You know? So it's like 12 minutes of just something that's going to be hard. Like that's not beneficial to anybody. So then it's like a tweak, and all right, we got to refocus on exactly what we're trying to do for this client.
Having a client that you said was getting ready, gearing up for a trip, hadn't really been doing much. And I know you mentioned before, you can't always get to the water, right? Like life gets involved. You can't get there when it's high tide or whatever. So you kind of have to figure it out based on your schedule. And when we first got into CrossFit Endurance, the whole thing they pitched to us was you can do a lot of this strength stuff, a lot of this HIIT stuff, and you might not have the time to get all the running, but you'll be in good enough shape to go do a marathon if need be. Is that kind of the mindset for some of these people? Will get you in good enough shape. You might not be able to be in the water every day, but when we get you in the water and you have that 5-day vacation, you're not going to be wrecked because you have this base.
That's kind of the goal. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The marathon thing is tough, man. I don't know if like you're just gonna like strength train and do HIIT stuff and then run a marathon, but that's like not really connected to
we try. We found that out the hard. I mean, you could do it. You're gonna be wrecked, but
you're gonna be wrecked.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, it's basically like, all right, I'm like Jersey, there hasn't been waves, and like, you mean you can go paddle, but not everybody has a paddle board, and like you're not going to go hop on your shortboard and just like paddle around in the ocean for an hour, because I mean it's just, I guess you could. You get, yeah, you're so boring. You're like, oh my god, we're just going to paddle around. But yeah, basically it's like, all right, let's, you know, if you're not going to surf, let's do some dry land training that's going to get you ready and get you in shape and be good to go for when you surf. And then, you know, for this guy on his trip, we mapped out like, you know, some pre-surf stuff, some post-surf stuff, some mobility things, and some conditioning, some like light conditioning stuff on the days that he may or may not get in the water. And also was like, you know, if you have to neglect some of these workouts to spend time with your wife, then I think that's a good decision, you know? So a little life coaching in that moment. But he surfed. He said he felt good, and like a little bigger surf than he normally was comfortable surfing in, even though it had been like some time since he had surfed. And then he's like, yeah, and I played golf, and he's like, I was good. You know, I had a little bit of soreness, but other than that, I was solid. So, I mean, and he was like probably maybe like 6 or 8 weeks into the program when he went on his trip. You know, I feel like that's the mission accomplished with what we're trying to do for a guy like that, you know?
And I know you said this is kind of your first season getting underway with the clients and what have you, but do you kind of have it set up where there's an in season and an out of season kind of difference, or is it going to be the same throughout the year for people?
I mean, it's going to be, I mean, I could tweak it and like modify it depending on where somebody's at, like like if it was September, like we could periodize it a little bit, like if it's like late September, early October, and somebody's out on the North Shore and they're like, yo, I want to get ready for the season, we can, the 8 weeks leading up to like beginning of December would be one thing. And then once we kicked into the season, we would change it a little bit. And we've even modified it like week to week. I've had a client like, he sent me like the forecast and surf. And I'm like, all right, well, the plan gets modified this week. Let's take this out. Let's keep you fresh here, focus on the mobility here, that kind of stuff. So I haven't really like made it too seasonal yet. But I mean, I could, that wouldn't be a problem, but we just haven't gotten there yet. And but it wouldn't, I mean, definitely could do it. It's almost like it's not even seasonal. It's like could be like week to week. Like, all right, there's going to be waves Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? We're not going to hammer you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Like we got to taper you a little bit so you're at least fresh to surf, and then manage how you're feeling after you surf.
You mentioned, not really being too keen on maybe necessarily just kind of going out and paddling on a short board just to get your cross training in or your conditioning in that aspect. Are you someone that maybe would get into like kind of like lifeguard paddle boarding or even like a stand-up paddle? Because I know like, in different places, where I've lived, Colorado, Oklahoma, South Carolina, like stand-up paddle boarding is like a thing. But
Yeah.
I feel like with all of my interactions in New Jersey or with my friends in New Jersey, it's like something that is definitely something you're getting made fun of for at the Jersey Shore. But like other places, it's like people are loading them on the cars. You can go to yoga classes in Colorado and do sup yoga.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, like I think stand-up paddleboarding is like super boring. Like if you get one that you can surf on, like that's kind of fun, but that's because it's surfing again. It's
Right.
like I don't want to just like throw this paddleboard in the water and just like float around and like paddle around. It just like doesn't appeal to me. But as far as like an actual paddleboard, like a proper, like a lifeguard board, but they make like real proper like 9-foot paddle boards. Like that's legit. That's like a real legit workout. I don't have any clients that have one of those yet. I have a buddy who has one and he likes it, but again, like you kind of want to, I keep coming back to the boring thing. Like like if it's so boring, then like you're not going to stick to it. I feel like, right. You want to have something that's keeps you entertained and you kind of get excited about. And, but like if you got a real heavy paddle out somewhere, like you're going on a trip that's going to be crazy paddle out or super heavy and you have a paddleboard and like you're committed to that trip, like a paddleboard is a nice piece of equipment to have, so I'm for that, but I don't have any clients that have one.
Right on. So. And you personally, like if it came down to like, hey, you want to go sup or you want to go CrossFit, you'd take CrossFit 10 out of 10 times?
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I have paddleboards. We have them at my family's house in Normandy, and there was a couple of people. It's like a couple of my brothers and some of the neighbors were like, we're all going to pool our money together and like we're going to get 2 paddleboards. You guys, do you want to contribute? I'm like, nope.
I'm
you
good.
can say I'm not allowed to use it, and that's fine. I would not give you a dime for a SUP. So.
Right on. Where do you CrossFit at?
Oh, it's a place in Little Silver. It used to be called Monmouth CrossFit. Now it's called Foundry.
Okay. So, is that on 35?
It's by, you know where the Little Silver train station is?
Yeah.
It's like kind of on that road. That's Oceanport Avenue. And it's like tucked in over there. There's a Mercedes-Benz dealership over there.
Okay.
It's like right behind that thing.
Is it
So-
like that plaza there?
Yeah, there's like a kind of a commercial, like couple of buildings back there, and they got like some small businesses. There's a PT office there and like I don't know, some acting thing there and a veterinarian. And then they have like an old garage. So it's a great community. Like everybody's positive and friendly, and like we had our baby, and like I was home for like 4 days and my doorbell rang, and one of the guys from the gym was there, and like everybody chipped in money and got us like an Amazon gift card. And so I mean it's a good group, and it's kind of just fun.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I mean, Jimmy and I always talk about, the thing that always was the main attraction to the CrossFit was the community and the people and the just that, the vibe of it felt with a good coach, it always kind of felt like an intense, like awesome wrestling practice. You know what I mean? We're just people who are just clanging and banging and slapping high fives and getting after it and heavy breathing and lots of sweating and just, it was good community, good fun. And you always, if sumo deadlift high pulls or what turns you off from CrossFit, then just don't do those.
Don't go that day.
Don't do that. Don't go that day.
Cherry pick.
Yeah. But like Mike and I were talking, and when I did the Motives podcast, like, there's some days where I'm like that, like I'll go and I'll leave, and I'm like, I didn't really need that. Like I'm at a point where like I need to do certain things, and I don't necessarily need to do other things. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to snatch heavy in my life. Like I could just do like if we're doing heavy snatches, like it would benefit me more to just stay home and do like hip correctives. Like that would serve my life better. Or like, nobody's a perfect programmer, but like there was one workout was like 55 deadlifts, 55 power cleans, and like 55 push press. And I'm like,
I'm good.
I don't need to do 55 of any one of those movements ever. Like I'm definitely not going.
Not even in the same week.
Yeah. I'll just like stay home and do leg raises laying on my side and like probably feel better about myself and help me more. Get the mini band out and go nuts.
I think it goes back to what you were saying before. In your 20s, you could just wreck yourself. And that's where I was at in my 20s, like, 2-day CrossFit, let's do it. And now I don't even want to look at a barbell. Like I'd rather do yoga than do deadlifts. That's where I'm at these days. Anyone listening to this podcast, maybe a bro who's on the fence about checking out the program, do you have maybe like 1 or 2 tips for a surfer that can kind of change your game up if they just implement these tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think every surfer is kind of looking to improve their paddling, right? Because paddling is just so huge for surfing. It's like if you're a soccer player, it's like running, right? So it's not too specific because it's like it encompasses so much. But if you can. And it doesn't apply to everybody because some people, I would say like work on your thoracic mobility, right? Some like thread the needle stretches, some like rolling out thoracic extension, and work on like scapular stability because that'll keep your shoulders in good health for paddling and minimize your risk for damage like impingements and things like that. So work on the thoracic mobility, right? Because it'll get you in a good position for paddling, right? Get your chest up off the board and work on some scapular stability. So like mid trap, low trap, your basic like that's more scapular stability. Then you can work on some rotator cuff strengthening, like the basic like rotator cuff exercises, external rotation in different planes, 90 degrees of abduction, 45 degrees, and then kind of focus on that stuff.
Do you notice tight shoulders and tight thoracic tend to be a kind of thing across the board?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like 90% of my clients are like, I'll show them some thoracic mobility stuff and they'll be like, oh my God, like that, what was that? Like, I've never done stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I can see you've never done stuff like that.
No kidding.
Yeah. But, and it's like, I didn't do stuff like that for a long time either. So, it's like it's not like, oh yeah, my spine is like so fantastically mobile. It's definitely not, it's like, I spent 20 years in a wrestling stance. So like trying to make it as rigid as possible. And now I have to like fix that.
Yeah, I would imagine like even like the like desk jockey types, people that are working at a computer all day long, that kyphosis would be so counterproductive to your thoracic mobility and being able to prop your chest off at the off the board when you're paddling. Because I think like for the lay person, I think when they think of surfing and think of paddling, they just assume that you're kind of just laying your chest on the board and paddling, but like you have to have that thoracic off, your chest off the back, and you have that thoracic arch. And if you're not ready for that, I mean, like you said, after a couple months off of you were in the water for 30 minutes and you thought you were going to puke, like it's pretty debilitating to try to like paddle around like that in good conditions too. It'll work you over if you're not ready for it.
It'll totally work you over. Yeah, for sure. And and then it just like leads to all kinds of dysfunction and issues that are going to really give you some problems, like a long-term problems, like keep you out of the water for weeks and months, which is like the worst possible thing for you. Like I couldn't think of anything worse. Like, oh, my shoulder's wrecked, so I can't paddle and I can't surf for like 3 months. Like that sounds terrible. And I think things, I guess it's kind of trendy because like when I first started PT, people didn't really talk a ton about like your thoracic spine mobility and how important it was. And now it's like a really, kind of, I wouldn't say it's a hot topic, but like it's much more on the forefront of PTs and PT intervention and stuff like that, which like, 15 years ago, you didn't talk about it too much, but it'll affect your cervical mobility too, so your ability to just like keep your head up and see where you're paddling to can get affected also. So
yeah. You notice it, we were talking before, we're joking about like how it's tough to walk around it with the general population and see so many people with so many deformities. But, the most tragic thing I think is, when you see, high school or middle school or college age kids that are already just like Quasimodo, and it's like, dude, you have to put down the gaming system.
Yeah.
Or we need to get you like some bands doing some pull aparts and work on your spine and your mobility, because if you're like this at 15, 16, 17, you got a long life ahead of you, or maybe you don't.
I mean, kids are so tough because like they're so resilient and they don't feel any of that, so it's hard to connect a negative outcome with them yet. And by the time you can, and the time they're like 35 or 40 and they're way down here and they're like stuck, like it's already at some point, you're like your whole skeletal system has adapted, so you can only reverse it so much.
Yeah.
And especially younger like teenage boys, like they're like frontal lobe and prefrontal cortex and stuff that associates like outcomes and things like that and consequence, like it was like doesn't exist. You know what I mean? That's why you'll like do anything when you're 15 years old. You're like like, oh, let's get this shoddy bike ramp set up over here. I don't need a helmet, it's like you have no correlation to consequence in your brain at that point in your life. So oh yeah, in 30 years your back's gonna hurt does not resonate with a 15 or 16-year-old kid. Or like, I get people that are like sitting in the waiting room and they're like slouched over, and I'm like, hey, how's you working on your posture? Like, oh yeah, I'm doing it all day. I'm like, you're not doing it in my office. I just told you about it yesterday. You want me to believe that you're doing it at work? No way. So, and I'm like, I'll sit there and talk to a patient and I'll be like, yeah, you need to work on your posture. And I'm sitting on a stool, like slouched over like this. And I'm like, I'm as bad as everybody else, but it's like, it's pretty funny.
Dave, there's no way I can get you on the podcast and not talk about wrestling.
Let's do it, man.
Are you coaching? You helping out anywhere right now?
Yeah, man. I'm at CBA helping out. Last year was limited contribution because we had the baby and it's just like a time thing. So next year, hopefully I'll be able to get over there a little bit more. And we got the preseason rankings came out. CBA is ranked 5th in the state. So that's where we finished last year. And we had a couple kids in state finals. And I think we got 5 kids like ranked in the top 3. But, you need like, to get in the top 3 in the state, you need to have like 10 kids ranked in the top 3, like, Del Barton or Burton Catholic, those schools. So, but yeah, man, a good group of kids, good coaches.
So mentioning CBA is number 5 in the preseason. I mean, Dave Santamaria put CBA wrestling on the map. So what's that mean for you to see how Billy Ashnot has taken that program over and how much success they've had?
Billy does like such a phenomenal job with the kids. I mean, they're so, I don't know, they're like so bought in and like just in trusting and believing in Billy. He does such a good job with those kids. And the other side of it, which is like less obvious, is like Billy does a really phenomenal job with the parents. They have a lot of trust for him. And I mean, to see the program, like, I think it hit a couple of good steps, like, kind of like when I was there, kind of exposed it a little bit, like, oh yeah, in this area, if you go to a Catholic school, like you can have some good success wrestling. And then, then the next like couple of years, Coach Baldy kind of helped it push it along. And then you had those couple of years where Sebastian was there and it was like, all right, you can go to CBA, be a state champ, and CBA won the short conference tournament. Like those are like things that I would never think I would have ever seen in my lifetime, and it's so like amazing. Like we beat some teams that I would never in my life would think that we're ever going to beat this team. When we wrestled those teams, like we'd be like 66-6, like everybody would get pinned except for me and I pinned somebody, So, and we just like, some of those teams were like blowing the doors off them. Or like us, it's like a waste of our time now, so it's amazing. They're doing such a good job over there. And I'm just like happy. I'm not even I'm a volunteer. So I'm just happy to like, just go over there, contribute what I can. And I'm starting to be like, kind of like the old guy they just kind of like let hang out in the room because I just been there for so long, They're like, oh, it was just like be nice to him because he's here all the time. So
So being a PT, how has that changed your outlook on wrestling, maybe training, or maybe how wrestlers should train? Is there anything that you see maybe looking back at yourself as a younger wrestler and things, not necessarily, oh, I wish I did this, but oh, this would have helped, this could have added, or just in training wrestlers throughout the years, just some glaring things that could have really helped tighten things up?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I don't know if anything is really like registered in my mind personally. I think it's the sport as a whole, or just sport in general as a whole, and training in general, is like people are recognizing the benefits of like rest days and like things that like Cale Sanderson's been doing at Penn State, where it's like, there's days they just have off, and like, you look at Iowa and like, it's like, there's no off days. I mean, I don't know what they do there. So like, I'm not speaking for them, but like in the Gable days, there was no off days at Iowa, right? Like they didn't get an off day. I can't imagine like that was just not their perspective on things. And now you have all these like wearables and, all these things that people can talk about and are such easy access to for like these athletes to manage their training volume just like being conscious of that and seeing, where like their resting heart rate is and they're tracking their sleep and just being able to adjust the load or the volume that they're placing on themselves is like such a big shift from, I think, when we were all wrestling, where it's kind of just like, you put the pedal to the floor as much as you can, and like you don't take days off kind of thing. So I think that's been a big shift. And I think for the better, new science will come out and the trends will change. It's probably something will change, but for now, I think it's a pretty good move for the athletes.
We talked a lot about, spinal positioning and posture throughout this episode in our talk. Have you noticed anything specifically, because you mentioned, like, I was in a wrestling stance for, over 2 decades or whatever it was. I had a lot to work on. Is that something that you see that can be fixed, or are you addressing certain postures and positions and wrestling stances that can be more beneficial for spinal alignment in terms of like power output?
I haven't really kind of like explored that too much, to be honest with you. I think, it kind of like, sometimes you see some guys in their stance and you're like, oh, that looks terrible. But, they end up in good position and their head's where it's supposed to be and their hands are where it's supposed to be for like defending shots and keeping guys off their legs. And so I think it kind of just like go with whatever the default position is for that athlete's body. I'd have to do a lot of like digging and assessment and tweaking, and I think it'd be so monumental, especially by the time, like, if I'm coaching high school kids, like they've been, they've been wrestling for 10 years already, so it'd be so complicated at that point, so I can't really speak to it too much.
If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of, I think.
It's like, we mentioned Jeff Jacobs earlier, and his whole thing was, always warm up. You got to warm up. You got to warm up. And he'd be like, you don't warm up for a street fight. Like, you got a point.
He'd be talking to everyone. I'd be running around losing my mind. He'd be standing around eating people's snacks.
Yeah, but street fights aren't planned. Right? Like, they're more spontaneous. UFC fighters warm up. So
but it goes back to trying to explain that to a 15, 16-year-old kid.
Yeah, right. I get his logic. The other kind of argument for that is like, the lions don't warm up.
Yeah.
They just go from 0 to 60 and hunt their prey. So, okay, I guess that's a good argument, but yeah.
When they keep accumulating the W's, you know what I mean? It's
right.
Like, you're not gonna
winning, coach.
It's hard to change anything at that point, well, you can win better. There's a better way to win. Okay, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you mentioned you had a son, and my final wrestling question for you is: if your son wants to wrestle, or you have a buddy who wants to have their kid wrestle, what do you think the best way to bring a kid up in the sport of wrestling is, so it's something that they love and they can take those lessons with them for the rest of their life and have a positive experience?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's something I think about much more frequently now than I had, 2 years ago. I didn't have a kid, but well, my wife is not too keen on having our son wrestle, and like she's like, every time you come home from practice, your face is all fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like defense. So like you gotta defend with your face. She's like, what? Doesn't make sense. But so if she can get over it, I think the best way for him to have a healthy relationship is like, and I don't necessarily know if it's specific to wrestling, but I'd like to just like instill, having him put in an effort that he's proud of, so whatever it is, it doesn't have to be specific to wrestling, but like, you know, it's not a win-loss thing. But you know, he comes out of practice and I'm like, you know, were you proud of that practice? Like, because it's not, who cares if I'm proud of it, right? Like, it's not my life, it's his life. So like, he's got to be proud of it. He's got to live with the regret of putting in a half effort and getting a half a result that he doesn't want, if that's how it goes, you know? So just kind of instill in him, like, you know, all you can do is just like go into practice, put in as much effort as possible and do everything as hard and as well as you can. Not worry about the results, because they'll come if you're putting in a good effort and doing the right things. And that, I think, is kind of like goes by, applies to everything in life, right? You know, I mean, you can't always control the outcomes, but you can certainly like put in as much effort as possible. And you know, I'll never like be over not winning my senior year, but the only thing I can take a little bit of solace in is like knowing that like my effort that year was absolutely maxed out. Like there was not one more thing I could have possibly done that year to achieve my goal. And like, it doesn't, you know, that's not as good as having won, but I did everything I could. And like, you can't always control the outcome, you know? So just try to get him to focus on the effort that he's putting in and not the outcome. And like, I mean, he's going to be like seasonal until he's like 7th grade, you know? I'm not going to hammer him like year round and like multiple teams and traveling. And like, if he expresses interest and he asks me to do that stuff, I'll do it all, but I'm not going to push him into doing any of that stuff. And I'll just like take him to get privates with Ernie a whole bunch when he's a freshman in high school, and I'll catch him up in a year.
So it's
But you see that he went from having to convince his wife to now he's already up to
go to ed
seasonal
freshman
7th
year.
grade, and then he got a plan for freshman year.
I got a plan. I'm just, you know, we just have to be able to wrestle first. So, I mean, if he doesn't want to wrestle, he doesn't want to wrestle. He'll do whatever he wants, you know?
Yeah.
So, but
He'll definitely be a surfer though, too, right?
if he wants to be, you know, as long as he puts good effort into whatever he wants to do, we're all good. We're square.
Hell yeah.
So,
Hell yeah.
Dave, you said a lot there. I want to touch on. I know we're killing your time right now, but
all good, man.
First, you said effort, right? And we had Martin Rooney on, and that's exactly what he said about having his kids do sport is, you know, I might not be a swimmer, but I know what, you know, putting maximum amount of effort is and what that looks like. And if you put in all the effort that you can, I don't care what the result is. And I think that is, man, I wish I had that mindset when I was in high school. I think, you know, it would have made some of those losses not hurt as much. And you had mentioned not winning the States your senior year. And I just want to let you know, you were like one of my favorite coming up when I was watching. You know, it was Damien Hahn, the upper weights, and Dave Santamaria for the lower weights. You were gonna fuck someone up, pardon my French, like when you were on the mat, especially your senior year. And it's interesting. We were sitting right next to Ernie's family your senior year of States. And I just want to say, you know, they always say, you know, don't meet your heroes. And growing up Region 6, obviously the older guys are who you look up to. And you were someone who was always super cool to me. And you were the first person my senior year, you wrestled me like I was a man and made me realize like I had a lot to go. Cause you like, I remember you snapping me down into the mat and like, okay, that's what college feels like. Like I got a lot to go, but just know that you were someone who had an impact on me coming up. So I know you didn't reach your goals, but I think you did a lot for the sport, especially Region 6, especially CBA. Is there anything that you would have told yourself, you know, just say you could have an out-of-body experience and talk to yourself after that match? Is there anything you would have said to yourself, or like, I know you said that, you know, you put all the effort in that you could have, and that's all you could have controlled?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I appreciate that. Glad to have positively impacted some people, you know. That's cool of you to say all that stuff. So thanks. Right after the match, probably not. Probably like a little bit later, and like being a teenager and like not, kind of being typical like teenager where you're kind of like, oh, I know all of it, and I would have just like told myself to kind of focus a little bit more on college, because I can still remember our Region 6 banquet, and like my senior year, and Jay Nace got inducted to the Region 6 Hall of Fame after he'd been an All-American. And he was like, he did say like, look, I didn't win the States, but being an All-American, like, kind of made up for it, So I would have just kind of tried to guide myself into like really pushing hard for that, because it was certainly within, the skill and my talent level. I think, it could have been something that I was very capable of if I had, trained the right way and stuff in college and had been focused on it as much as I should have been. So maybe I would have just like told myself to like, take all this angst and just like shift it into college, and might have changed my college career, but things happen for a reason. You're at where you're at, because of the way your life went. So
Well, I also think it's one of those things too, where I look back at my career and getting, a different spot on the podium. I don't know if it would have changed things up that much, right? When you look back, hindsight 2020, like, yeah, I'd had a nice gold medal, but would that much have changed? And I know I had a period. Did you ever have a period where you were like super bitter at wrestling?
yeah. Like and it was misdirected. It wasn't really like, it wasn't the wrestling, it was me and my approach to wrestling. It's like in college when I kind of bagged it, and I was like over it. I graduated college. I was like, I don't want anything to do with that sport. And I was like, I don't want to watch it, kind of fuck that sport. I don't want to be around it. And like Coach Baldy called me up and he was like, hey, I got these two kids. They're brothers, and they're twins, and like they're freshmen. And like, you think you could come in and just like work with them just like one day? And I'm like, Coach, like, I love Coach Baldy. He's awesome. I still talk to him. I talked to him the other day, and I'm like, I'm not really into coaching. Like, that's not going to be my thing. I don't really want to even be around wrestling. And he's like, just do one day. Just come in for one day and work with these kids. And I was like, all right, I'll come in. And so I worked with these guys, and so that was the end of practice. And I'm like, all right, cool. That was great. Good to meet you guys, whatever. And they're like, you coming back tomorrow? And I was like, they had like puppy dog eyes. I'm like, I guess I'll come back tomorrow. It's like, now it's like 20 years later. I've been like coaching every year. So, and those guys are like, I'm still friends with those guys. They're good. Now they're like my buddies. Back then I was like so much older than them because I was 23 and they were like, I guess they were
Chirellos, right?
Yeah, Chirellos. Yeah, Anthony and Dave. Yep. So, and that was a good team. They had a lot of like good wrestlers and good guys on that team. So it was like they just like sucked me right in, and now here we are. So I don't even know. I'm not even sure. Why did I tell that story? I'm sorry.
Yeah, how you got back into wrestling?
How you got back into
it. Yeah, because that's pretty much it. Yeah. And I guess like I'm kind of a fan now. Like people would be like, "Oh, did you watch this match?" They're like, "No, I don't watch. I'm not into watching it." Now I'm like, text my brothers. I'm like, "Yo, you guys coming over to Big Ten finals?"
Yeah. That's awesome. Kind of what happened to me. Just kind of I got lucky because my college coach was Mike Mao, and he just never really let me get away from it. And then living with Rich for 4 years, he'd always be watching it, and I'd be like walking through, like, check this out, and then we started going matches, and now it's like once wrestling season comes, it's like, nope, can't do anything. There's a match on, leave me alone.
My wife even knows like some of the guys on Iowa, because like Iowa's on, Penn State's on, and we'll watch like a dual meet and then it'd be like Big Tens, and I'm like, oh, this is the guy that, you know, she's like, oh yeah, I'll watch. Like she kind of recognizes everybody and stuff like that. So
there you go. Chip it away, Bo. It'll be on a map before you know it.
She's pretty adamant. He's been to a match though. He went to a match at CBA and he just like had a bottle and slept right through it, which was good.
Well, that's how it starts, Dave. It starts just being on the side of the mat. That's how it started with me. I had no choice in the matter.
Just a little bit at a time, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Probably the most important question that we'll ask
roll
you
or Taylor
of
ham?
all night. Is it pork roll or is it Taylor ham?
So there's an actual answer to this question, right?
Yep.
There's a
I know
real
what you're
answer.
gonna say.
So Taylor ham is the brand.
Yeah.
Pork roll is the meat. So you can get ShopRite pork roll, right? Or there's some like knockoff pork rolls, right? But Taylor ham is the brand of pork roll. So, you know, I mean, I'll say whatever it takes to get me the sandwich that I want, you know, but I don't know. I think I go back and forth. I don't think I'm like married to one or the other.
Okay.
So I kind of will like float between. I'm probably more of a pork roll sayer than Taylor ham. But
are you a Bagel Masters guy? Do you go to Bagel Masters or is that near you?
He ain't eating gluten, bro.
I mean, if you're eating pork roll, you might as well get a
animal
gluten bar.
style.
Yeah, I don't go to Bagel Masters too frequently. I got one time. I don't want to talk about it, but
okay.
There was no problem with the quality of the food. The food was good.
Okay.
So they just like charged me for lettuce and tomato one time, and I was like, "Isn't that part of a sandwich? Like you get upcharged for that?"
Oh,
So
okay.
I was like, "All right, I'm not coming back for a while."
Okay.
I think I'd be back once or twice, but I think I'd like a roll. I put on a hard roll.
Okay. Right
So
on.
yeah.
Go ketchup or no ketchup?
Salt, pepper, ketchup, baby.
Okay.
For sure.
Bruce Springsteen or Bon Jovi?
Probably Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen or Bouncing Souls?
Oh, Bouncing Souls.
All right.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say to the first one.
We got to narrow it down from the two old legends, and then we get into the kind of
good shit.
Old school, the good shit. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like around the corner. They're Jersey guys.
No doubt.
Yep.
Take it away, Jim.
All right, this is the rapid fire.
Yes, sir. Dave, are you a coffee drinker?
Oh yeah.
How do you brew your coffee, and how do you take it?
So we just got a machine that has like a built-in like burr. So it's an auto drip, but it gets ground and then dropped into the thing. And then I take it black. It's pretty fancy.
What kind of bean do you prefer?
Like the kind of roast.
Yeah, are you like a medium, light, dark?
I'm probably like a medium or a dark, but I kind of like experiment, I'll try different stuff. So yep. I'm kind of all over. Do
you support any local roasters, or are you getting them online, or?
Yeah, man. So of course, it's like the Monmouth County Jam is Rook, right? And Asbury Park Roastery are both very solid product.
Okay.
Which we get up.
Have you ever heard of Aficionado Coffee?
No, I have not.
They actually I think they've done some stuff with Gary V. They might be like the official coffee of VaynerMedia or whatever, but it's the head roaster and the founder of the company is a Homedale grad.
What year did they graduate?
2000. I want to say 2002 or 2003, probably.
Oh, because I lived in Homedale, but I didn't go to Homedale High School, so I went to middle school there.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it was,
aficionado. If they're Jersey, I'll check them out.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, they make good. They roast good beans.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. I'm into it.
Dave, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of yourself?
Yeah, man. My daily mobility, my daily digital detox, read at the end of the day, and try to minimize my like social media usage, even though my business kind of runs through it, to try to control that. That's pretty much it for now. Yep.
Respect.
What are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? What are you reading?
So I am reading 2 books right now. I'm reading The Ripple Effect, and I'm reading Barbarian Days, A Surfing Life, it's called. Music wise, what am I listening to? We're kind of like indie folky in this house, you know what I mean? Sometimes we'll get like, for me personally, like my favorite band that still plays live is Tool. So like, I'll crush some Tool when nobody's home. I try to get my son to listen to Tool, but I don't know if he likes it.
You get down with Pussifer? No.
Yeah, I saw Pussifer at Count Basie one time.
Really?
I was in the second row. It was so bizarre. Like, we showed up and they had a wrestling ring, like a professional wrestling ring on the stage.
It's like wearing a lucha mask.
Yeah, I got a mask from the show. And it was pretty good. It was like kind of like super melodic Tool.
All right.
So they're cool. I've seen A Perfect Circle. They're pretty good. But I mean, Tool is like, they're my number one. Yeah, they're super high. Like for me, the only people that are higher than Tool are like Zeppelin and the Beatles. So
what's your favorite Tool album?
My favorite Tool album is probably Lateralis. Just like, I don't know. I guess because like when I really started listening to Tool was like right when that album came out. We saw him perform, and but I mean the newer stuff on what's the latest album? I can't remember the name of it.
Is it
Fear Inoculum?
Fear Inoculum. 10,000 Days was the previous one, right?
Yeah.
Like when you see them play that live, like it seems like so long, and like it doesn't like have the same like punch you in the face as like Lateralis and stuff off Anima, but like it is heavy as hell. Like they get into it playing live and you're like, holy shit, like this thing is kicking my ass right now, so like it's really good. But Lateralis is probably my number one. Yep.
Right on. What's the Ripple Effect about?
The Ripple Effect is like 4 like basics of life. It's like sleep better, eat better, move more, like I don't know, I think it's like think better. So it's pretty interesting. It's an easy read, and it's got a lot of pretty like solid stuff in there. It's I think the guy's name is Greg Wells that's writing it or wrote it. And that it's kind of some stuff I preach to my clients. Like I read it kind of at a good time because it like the sleep stuff is like so profound and so impactful on like every function of your body and anything you do, that it almost gives me anxiety when I'm like, I only got 6.5 hours of sleep. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, it's funny, talking about getting older and stuff. That's the one thing, like, I feel like when I was lifeguarding and stuff back in the day, like I had energy, and now I'm just convinced because I was barefoot and grounding for like 8 to 10 hours a day in the sand and just absorbing the sun. That's where my level of woo woo is now. But yeah, I definitely get upset when I get like, or if I'm tossing and turning and I look over and I see that it's like 12:30 and I'm like, oh, I gotta be up at 4:30. I'm behind.
It's like so counterproductive. It's like the exact opposite of what you need to be doing to try to get to sleep.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dave,
Well,
last one we got for you.
but
Not necessarily that you believe or subscribe to anything, but do you have a favorite conspiracy theory? Maybe find yourself in a wormhole late at night or something that you've always kind of fascinated.
Not late at night because he's off the
Right.
media.
yeah, definitely not. It's definitely not late at night. We're starting to kick into this is more screen time late at night than I'm used to. So,
Sorry.
it's all right. Oh man, I've heard like conspiracy theories are so awesome these days. Like they're so amazing, but I don't know if I subscribe to this one, but I heard about these underground tunnels that are all over the world and are used by the super elite for all kinds of nefarious doings, wherever you want your imagination to go, and also like transporting riches, beyond your imagination. Like apparently there's like tunnels from like, Rome to like Africa, and they're all over America, and they, the super elites can like go in the tunnels and do whatever they want. So I haven't actually researched this, but I had a patient in my office share this stuff with me, and I was like, oh yeah, keep telling me about this. Like, tell me more. And it was super interesting. And I didn't do any research on it, but that's what was the information that was shared with me at the time. So that's like the most far out one I can think of that I've heard recently. So
right on. Well, we wear our tinfoil hats over here from time to time. Not necessarily that we believe anything, but yeah, we like to get weird over here. So we've definitely heard of the tunnels
nice.
around, and that are some there's one that supposedly is from Denver, from the airport, that goes all the way to Colorado Springs to NORAD.
There you go.
Again, it's for those elites doing their nefarious things. So it's more than just your client talking about it. We've definitely heard about it.
All right.
So I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, man. Cool. I'm glad somebody else has heard of that. So funny.
One surf specific one. Where's your favorite spot to catch waves at the Jersey Shore?
Oh man. I mean, I like in the summertime, I feel like, relationship to where I live, and I don't really go too much further south than Ocean County because it gets a hassle to drive, but the sandbars in Ocean County in the summertime, and then all the kind of jetties or groins in the winter time. And because Pier Village is only 2 miles away from me, it's probably my favorite place to surf right now. Just pure convenience. And it's set up really nicely right now. So
good seeing you, brother.
Yeah, fellas, it's nice seeing you. Nice chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. That was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Great conversation. Sorry to keep you in the blue light and getting those vibes, but we'll power down now, and hopefully we still get our 8 hours in.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks, fellas.
All right,
Good
brother.
chat with you.
Have a good
Talk
one.
to you
Good
soon.
night.
Later on.
Later.